Hey guys, Troy here at the Pacific North Central. Suppose you guys are wondering what all these tools are sitting out here for. Well, it's because these are the tools that you need for building turnouts. Not everything you actually need to go ahead and build a turnout. However, these are tools that I also use for building custom turnouts. I'll go through the must-haves and the stuff that you really don't need unless you're going to build a custom turnout. The first thing you're going to need is some PCB ties. Now again, I'm going to explain this all in N scale and how I go through everything. PCB ties, they're a must. Gotta have them. A pair of rail nippers, cutting the rail. You'll need a marker for marking all the PCB ties and where to go and cut your gaps, which all this stuff I'll end up going through again. A X-Acto knife. I use this for cleaning up any excess solder in case it gets up there in the flanges of the rail. Pair of tweezers. This is my favorite tool. I use these tweezers right here a lot. You'll need yourself a jig. Depending upon what kind of layout you have and what you want to use. This is a number 4. They come in various different sizes. These are built by Fast Tracks. I'm not trying to sell their product or anything, but these are the tools that I use for custom building my turnouts. I use number 4s on all my branch line in yards and industries. Number 6s on all main lines. Another thing you'll need, definite must, is a point form tool. This will allow you to go ahead and create your points and your frogs on all your turnouts. And once again, we'll be going through all this. Small little piece of scrap wood. This is good for taking and drilling out your throw bar in order to go ahead and use a switch machine of some sort. Some masking tape, doesn't matter what kind it is, just some masking tape. I use this right here for holding down my frogs once when I go to solder them all up. The Allen wrench, which the Allen wrench actually comes with the point form tool. A number 65 drill bit. I use a number 65 because my rods are at, I believe they're 28 thousandths or 26 thousandths music wire that I use for my tortoise switch machines, and this right here is at 35 thousandths, which works really good for me. A old pair of trucks, and what I did was I actually used the actual wheel sets that I'm going to run on the layout. Once you build these turnouts, these will be to NMRA specs, and you're not going to have any room for any mistakes on this, because you're going to have to check all your wheel sets and everything else. So make sure that the sets that you have are at NMRA specs, so when you go to check it all, it'll all go through there nice and smooth. An NMRA track gauge. Once again, this is N scale for you HO guys. You guys will have to go and use the HO scale one, of course, but this one here is also another must. Pair of pliers, I'm sure everybody has. Wire brush, this is for cleaning up some of the rail and stuff. Another big must, and I've seen a lot of this being posted and stuff, people wondering why they can't solder their track and everything else, is solder. I think solder is one of the two main things on getting a nice clean weld on any type of soldering application that you're doing, whether if you're soldering feeder wires, whether you're soldering rail, or any other kind of electrical work up on your layout. However, this, make sure it has the word lead in it. This is 6040 lead. It's a tin lead base. I like to use 32 thousandths. 32 thousandths works really nice for me, and it works for many applications. So make sure that when you go out and you buy your solder, it says lead. Don't get it if it says lead free. You will not end up having a nice clean weld, as the silver solder actually takes a higher temp to go ahead and melt your solder to go and create a nice weld. And what I do with the solder is I actually take, I don't know if you guys can actually see this or not, these are just little pieces of solder that I actually sit down and cut up. I've actually figured out the approximate size that I use on building my turnouts, and I'll just go ahead and take and sit down and cut up a whole bunch of them, and I'll use my tweezers and actually place them on the ties right where I want my solder to go ahead and sit. And I'll show you guys once again, exactly how I place all the solder, where I place it at. Another thing is Flux. Gotta have a Flux. I myself like to use this ruby fluid. This works really well for me. It's the best Flux around that I have found to go ahead and use. I have tried some Radio Shack Flux, and to me, well, this stuff is just simply garbage. Throw it out. Don't need it. Another thing is some precision files. My two main files that I really use is the flat files. They're not very coarse. They're actually kind of fine. Two different grits. So one's a little bit finer, and then another one's a little bit coarser. One's for like finishing touches and stuff. And then some triangular files. Now these files right here I use a lot of for doing up my PCB ties, to go and cut the gaps inside the PCB ties so we don't create any short circuits. And then this one right here actually has some filing right up over here in the edge, so you can actually file on the edge of this one. It's nice and thin, and that can take and clean up on the insides of the rails or any place else where excess solder could have gotten or anything else. Once again, that's right where this tool right here comes in. Make sure you use this to clean up any excess solder before you use the file. As you can tell on this file right here, I'm hoping that you guys can see the lead, or not the lead, but the solder that's actually built up inside of all the grooves. Once that starts building up, it's not going to be very good anymore. Just something I had learned and through trial and error, but yet this is still actually pretty good. I could probably take a wire brush and try wire brushing it and try cleaning it up a little bit. Another tool that you don't really need, but you would probably really like to have, especially for end scale, is a jeweler's saw. The jeweler's saw is actually used to go ahead and create the isolation gaps and actually cut the rail for the frog, so you can actually isolate the frog. You can use a Dremel tool, but I'm sure you end scale guys know that we can't go ahead and get by with them other tolerances. I like to use this because it's a nice thin clean cut. It's not very noticeable once they are cut, and you can then go ahead and power up your frog and not have any short circuits. Like I said, you could use a Dremel if you can find a thin enough or small enough cut-off wheel. HO guys, you guys don't have to worry about it. You guys can just go ahead and use the Dremel tool, as that on HO scale you probably won't see. Plyo bond. Plyo bond is a glue that you go ahead and use to put on the wood ties up onto the turnout. This is actually a finished turnout, and what these are is they're actually just a quick stick tie. And what you do is you're just going to lay down the plyo bond coming across, you know, right where you want it to go ahead and stick at. Or you can hand lay all the ties, depending upon how messy you guys want the ties to look, or, you know, some of them business areas, you know, these ties, they're not straight. So what you would actually do with this is you'd actually go ahead and lay it down on there, stick the tie on, pull it back off, let it set up and tack up a little bit, stick them back on, and on myself I use a soldering iron to go ahead and finish curing up that tie. So plyo bond is another thing that you'd probably want. Once again, I'm sure that there's other glues and stuff that you guys can use. Maybe CA will work, or some other stuff. Another tool that is a must is a file. You got to have a file in order to go ahead and use the point form tool. A nice big file, because you're going to be taking and actually grinding down every single piece of rail for your points and your frogs. The stuff that I like to use for my custom built turnouts, where I don't have no jigs or anything else, is these little guys. These little guys right here will actually hold the rail into place for me, so I can get the rail into the approximate location of right where I want them to go ahead and sit. Do not use these as a gauge. These are not to NMRA specs. The rails will slide around on you and everything else. Once again, these are only used to hold the rail in place. Make sure that you always use an NMRA gauge, even with custom built turnouts, and using this. And even with a jig, make sure you use this. These are not accurate. I believe that these ones are from Micro Engineering. These are for code 55. Another thing for custom building turnouts and stuff that you really don't need, I like to use this as just a double face tape. I think I got this right here for for sticking on that clear plastic over windows and stuff. Picked it up at the dollar store for $1. I like to use this once when I have my template written down or drawn up on a piece of paper. Another one that's not a must. You can do without it, but this does make life a lot easier. And this is a Fast Tracks tie jig. It's an actual tie breaker. They come in for, you know, your number 4, number 6, number 8 turnouts, so forth and so on. And you'll actually just stick the ties down inside of here, clip off the ends of the ties, take your file, run it across, making sure that you don't cut down onto the wood. This works really well. It just makes life a little bit easier. Once again, it's not a need. You can do this without using the actual jig, in which I'm going to show you with just the basic tools to go ahead and build a turnout without using one of these. Another thing that you don't need is a stockade. You can get by without this. This is using for cutting out the stock rails on the turnouts. And what I mean by the stock rails is these two edges. The two rails that come down the outside edges right here, and what you're actually doing is you are going to be cutting out a section on the rail for right where the points actually sit. Once again, you don't need this. You can use just a regular file. You could probably use a Dremel tool. I myself also use a bench grinder will work. I have a sander that I use to go and speed process up, because this, I'm telling you right now, this thing takes forever. It works good. You get very accurate turnouts. However, plan on spending a little bit of time to go ahead and file down your stock rails and using one of these bad boys. Another thing I like to go ahead and use, which is not a must, is a rail bender. This is really nice for building curved turnouts and such. All you do is you just slowly adjust it. You'll slide the rail through there to go ahead and get the right curve, the curve that you want for your turnout. And if you need more curve, you just slowly tighten it up. You don't take this too fast. And you always want to make sure that you push your rail through from one side to the other, never pulling on it. Always take the rail and push, 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 all the way right up through to the end till you cannot grab it no more, and then you grab it and finish pulling it out. If you try pulling it, all it's going to do is straighten the rail right back out to the same place right where you had it again. Once again, this is not a must. It is a very nice tool, and it works very well for custom built turnouts. This works for is good for code 40 all the way through to code 148. So it's good for the N scale guys, HO scale guys, and I believe O scale. Works really nice. This video will be cut up. This is just a basic of the tools that can be used. This will end up being a series on how I build turnouts. This is not a how-to. This is a how I build turnouts. I also forgot to mention one other tool, which I forgot to actually take out, that I like to use. This is a steel scribe. You'll see me using this quite a bit on my jig when I go to put my rails up in there. I like to take and put this up towards the edge of the rail to actually hold it up tight to the jig and make sure it's nice and secure and it's fitting flat up against some PCB ties. That's a big key thing right there. So this is another tool that you probably like to have. You can use a file, you can use a pair of needle nose, whatever you like. You could even use one of your drill bits if you really want. You could even use your tweezers, X-Acto knife, whatever you want. This is just my choice and what I like to do. Like I said, this is not a how-to. This is a how I do this video. So with this series and stuff, this is right where I'm starting this off at. And in the next video, I am going to teach you guys how to go ahead and cut the PCB ties and insert the stock rails up inside of the actual jig. And then we'll go ahead and we'll start building up the jig and stuff, showing you guys right where to place solder, and a bunch of other things and stuff too as well. So I hope you guys enjoy, and if there's any questions or comments or anything else, or if there's something I left out, please feel free to go ahead and send me a message for anything at all, and I'll be more than happy to go ahead and answer them the best I possibly can. And Thanks again for watching. I'd like to thank all of you for subscribing. I'd like to thank everybody in Hangouts, YouTube model builders and YouTube model railroaders, as they've been a big help for me as well. I can't thank these group of guys enough. They're a really great group of guys to go ahead and hang out with, which we have some live tapings on Tuesday nights for an actual clinic, which this is one of the clinics that I ended up doing. And so now this is basically just a follow-up from the clinic. So if you guys have any questions or anything else like that, or if there's something that you guys had missed, for those of you who had actually watched the clinic, hopefully I can go ahead and go through this stuff and better clarify myself for anything that has been going on with everything. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and we'll go ahead and get the next video up here as soon as we can. And once again, this will be a series. I don't know exactly how long this series will be. I just know that I have to go and break it down. I'm not going to try to go and make a 2-hour video on building turnouts. This way here you guys can kind of break things up and go to the areas that you may need help with in installing stuff and working on certain areas of building a turnout. Thanks guys, and I hope you guys enjoy.